everyone. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Elizabeth, and I'm the producer of the 12th Chem, Petrochem, and Refinery Shutdowns and Turnaround event going on this August 4th through the 6th in New Orleans and online, bringing together turnaround professionals to discuss best practices and proper integration, planning, and execution for major projects to fortify schedule, scope, and safety. Today with us is one of our speakers, James Wright. James, thank you for your time with this interview today. Happy to be working together. James is a 20-year veteran supply chain management with experience in logistics, manufacturing, EPC, power generation, and chemicals. He is currently a senior manager of capital procurement with Nutrien. And with that, we'll just dive right into the questions. What is the topic that you're presenting on, and how does it relate to the audience?
Okay. The topic I'm presenting on is how to get the best value out of procurement within a turnaround situation. As you mentioned, I've been doing this for a long time, and it still to this day astounds me that the silos still exist when turnarounds are being planned and executed between all kinds of groups. But I think every organization can learn from other organizations on how to best integrate procurement into their turnaround planning and their turnaround execution.
Okay. So, with that and today's climate, I'm sure everyone's jobs are changing. So how are you adapting in this era of COVID-19?
That's a great question. Because literally no one's ever seen a situation like this, my organization's being ultra conservative, which is great for all 20,000 plus employees around the world. Mm-hmm. So no one's panicking, no one's knee jerking. We're taking a very long, hard look at, well, A, operations, but B, turnarounds. We have 26 facilities in 26 facilities in North America and Trinidad. We have several turnarounds going on every year. So this year, right before COVID hit, we'd planned turnarounds for June in central Alberta. Now we have two other ones one in Trinidad and one in Texas for later this year. So we stopped the turnarounds with the eye to moving them or keeping them as is. As the situation's evolved, we've moved the one from the spring to the fall in central Alberta. The other two are staying as is. So the timing's as certain as it can be. But now it's all the other stuff that goes into it, and I'm on phone calls about it, Zoom or Teams meetings every week. It's can we find labor? What's the labor going to look like? How are we going to make sure that our contractors are safe as well as our employees? Can we get all the work done? Literally down to, do we have enough masks? What's our anticipated mask usage? What kind of masks do we need? What other PPE are we going to need? We've invested in remote temperature sensing devices where they're thermometers, but they don't have to touch you. Like it's like a photo radar gun. You can stand 6 feet away and aim at that person. So we've invested a lot of money in those for all of our facilities, right? We're trying to figure out how that's working. We're doing research into how will COVID affect our turnarounds, and what we think we're going to see is that because of social distancing and all the extra time that's going to be required to get people safely to the site and off the site, and all the extra supervision that's going to be needed just to make sure everything's being done safely, we think we're going to see overall productivity go down slightly, because it's just there won't be as many people there. You have to worry about staying far apart. You have to worry about being safe. We're going to see productivity decline. We're going to see incremental costs go up because of, additional PPE, that kind of stuff. So that's what we think we're going to see. So is productivity going down, PPE going up. So ultimately costs will go up slightly, but we're not seeing what some of the hypotheses we had was, well, there's going to be lots of people standing around with no work to do. We're going to see huge decreases in costs for people. We don't think that's going to happen. But that's at a high level. That's the stuff we're thinking about right now as a company.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing. So, you said you're doing all these Zoom calls and talking to people, trying to figure this out. So, who are some of the key stakeholders that you interface with when making procurement decisions around shutdowns and turnarounds?
Um, Typically, we have a turnaround planning body at whatever site they're happening at. So these are people who's usually plucked out of their day jobs, and they're in charge of planning and executing turnaround. So that's the key stakeholder. We're also evolving a company-wide organization that oversees these turnarounds so that we can share best practices. So those are two of the key stakeholders. But then you have to consider everything. Well, we have to make sure that safety is involved, because especially now in today's environment, what are our protocols? How are the protocols changing? What do we need to do? What if we have a contractor who for lots of reasons can't get their own PPE? Do we have, we can't bring them on without it. Should we supply? How are we going to supply that? Operations is a key stakeholder. They want to know when the plant's going down, when the plant's going up, but who's going to be in the plant. Like, you have to work on the permitting parts of that. Safe access in and out. Maintenance is a big stakeholder in this, because they know what they want done, and they have this window to do it in. And also my group, in my role specifically within Nutrien, is I interface with the capital projects team at every plant. So they want to do a project, they want to install a new piece of equipment here. Well, we have to make sure that everybody else is on board with that. We have to make sure that we can do it safely, efficiently, all that kind of stuff, right? And when we're talking about procurement, we don't want to just talk about procurement. Especially in a turnaround, you have to remember that warehousing and logistics is part of it too, right? So when the items come in, where's it going? Where's it going to sit? Who controls it? Who knows about it? How are we arranging the shipments to and from the site? Who's controlling all that? So it's probably the biggest stakeholders are there.
Okay, good. Yeah, it's a lot to juggle. Got to make sure you got the right people. So,
Yep.
how do procurement efforts differ, if at all, from other maintenance and capital projects?
Typically, great question. The procurement people are paid to sweat the details, right? So good procurement folks are worried about every little thing for a turnaround. So within, like, leading up to a turnaround and during the turnaround, procurement folks are worried about, do we have literally enough nuts and bolts on site? Do we have enough hand sanitizer in this world? Do we have enough PPE to cover every eventuality? Masks, gloves, face masks, goggles, all that kind of stuff. So it's a lot of up to the point of the turnaround. It's a lot of planning, going off past history. What do we need? Making sure that all your suppliers are aware that, because typically you don't want to hold all these little things in your site. The best practice is you have a network of suppliers fairly close to your facility who can do it. So reaching out to the suppliers saying, we think we're going to do a shutdown here. Are you prepared to support us with a crew of 500, 1,000, 2,000 people? Right. Making sure labor availability is there, right? Reaching out to your contractors, because you bring on, in our world anyway, we bring on a fair amount of outside contractors in to help. Do they have their labor availability locked down? Do they know who the management's going to be? Do they know who the field supervisors are going to be? So it's a lot of making sure everything's as ready as it can be until the day one of the turnaround, and then from day one of the turnaround until it ends, it's usually just frantic. Because no matter how well you plan, something always gets missed, and I've lived it many times. It's literally, you need you're short a 12-inch bolt, and there's none in the country. I've seen situations, right, because it's special metallurgy or whatever. So there's a lot of panicking and running around and sourcing stuff on the fly. I've seen planes chartered to fly in pieces of equipment because they're in the piece of equipment's in the U.S. and the plant's in Canada. So from day one of the turnaround till it ends, it's a lot of panics, not necessarily in the procurement department, but it's a lot of fast. We need this stuff within an hour. You have to locate this, blah blah blah. So it's very very hectic, very exciting. Lots of people like it a lot. But it's just a rush, and it's usually 24/7 because you typically have crews working around the clock to get this done as fast as possible. That's, again, at a high level, that's probably the best.
Yeah, that gives me a greater idea. I mean, there's a lot more involved than even that I was imagining. So what's one piece of advice that you would suggest to a turnaround manager, for example, to maximize their procurement efforts, their capital procurement efforts?
Bring procurement to the table as fast as possible. Again, this is a tendency I've noticed in doing this for 20 years. It's whatever the piece of work is planned or the piece of equipment is planned for and thought about, and it's spec and it's scoped, and all the engineers are good and the operations folks are good, everything's fine, and then they bring in procurement to buy this piece of equipment or procure this service to get it done during the turnaround. But if you wait too long, the odds of it getting done in a timely fashion goes down dramatically, and usually your costs go up exponentially, right? So if you want to buy a piece of equipment and you spend a ton of time investigating it and getting it engineered and saying, okay, this is the perfect piece of equipment, this will do all we want it to. But if there's only, it depends if somebody has to make this off, if it's available off the shelf, which typically process equipment isn't. Does it have to get made? Where will it get made? How does it get shipped to site? How long does it take to actually negotiate the agreement? Because in today's day and age, suppliers are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and they're getting more and more and more sophisticated. So it takes a lot longer to negotiate deals with them because no one wants to accept business risk anymore. So if you compress the time to procure a piece of equipment, let's say, you lose all your ability to negotiate to get a good deal. You lose all your leverage, any kind of leverage you have, and you pay a lot more money to get it to your site. Whereas if procurement was involved at the get-go, typically they have access, or they know the market, or they have access to market intelligence. They can help guide the conversation, saying, yeah, we would have to buy this piece of equipment in Italy, and we're living this right now. We're having a lot of stuff manufactured in Europe. Europe's been shut down, so we're worried about getting pieces of critical equipment to us in time for turnarounds, right? So if you bring procurement in early enough, the procurement folks can say, look, this is going to be manufactured in Europe. We need a year. They're going to need a year to build it, and we're also going to need 6 months to move it from Europe to wherever the site is. Or they could say, yeah, that's readily available off the shelf. We can buy that a week before the turnaround and we're good, right? So my advice is always communicate and bring people to the table as early as possible.
Absolutely. All right, so now some more fun stuff. What can you tell us an interesting item about yourself or your professional career that we wouldn't find on your LinkedIn or bio?
I'm actually, I started out 20 years ago in the warehouse, and I progressed up from there. I was a shipper receiver when I first started in this business. So I actually have my warehouse, my forklift driver's license. And I'm willing to bet there's not many procurement senior managers or directors in North America who can say that. So
Nice. So you can just hop on and start driving around too, where others can't. That's nice. Gives you a bit more breath. So
yeah.
so what are you most looking forward to at our 12th Chem, Petrochem, and Refinery Shutdowns and Turnarounds conference this August?
Just to network, see how other organizations, see how other organizations operate. We all have essentially the same problems, more or less, but how every organization tackles them is a different way. So it's always fascinating to me. I go to a fair number of these just to see how other organizations handle their turnaround planning. In this case, see how everybody's dealt with COVID-19 differently, and what some ideas I can glean from there and bring back to my organization.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm excited. I'm really looking forward to it. And thank you
Me
again
too.
for this
Yeah,
interview.
no problem.
We'll see each other at the event.
You betcha. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Thank you, James.